Miss Chika had once been the envy of many young girls. In her university days, she was the epitome of class, always dressed in the latest designer clothes, her hair perfectly styled, her nails glistening with expensive polish. She was the kind of woman that men noticed when she walked into a room, elegant, confident, and seductive. But behind her luxurious lifestyle was a dark secret. Unlike her coursemates who juggled between classes and side hustles, Miss Chika had found an easier way to make money: hookups. At first, it was just to keep up with the lifestyle she had always desired, but as time passed, she realized how lucrative it was. The money was flowing in faster than she had ever imagined. Before she even graduated, she had traveled to several countries, experienced the best hotels, and dined in five-star restaurants, all at the expense of wealthy men who desired her company. By the time she reached her early 40s, she had seen the world, driven luxurious cars, and lived in grand mansions. But there was one thing she did not have: a stable life. Now, at 42, Miss Chika was beginning to feel the weight of time creeping up on her. The calls from rich men had drastically reduced, and those who still reached out only wanted younger girls. Her beauty, though still present, was not as captivating as it once was. She had no husband, no legitimate job, and no real source of income apart from the dwindling transactions she got from the few men who still found her appealing. Whenever she visited her village, she arrived in grand style: expensive car, designer bags, and boxes filled with gifts for her parents, uncles, and aunties. The entire village admired her. To them, she was the definition of success. They never questioned her wealth, nor did they ask about her source of income. After all, she always came back bearing gifts, and in a world where poverty was a constant battle, no one dared to bite the hand that fed them. But as she sat alone in her mansion one fateful night, sipping on a glass of wine, a disturbing thought hit her. Her so-called glamorous life was crumbling. The money was no longer rolling in as it used to, and she was getting older. She couldn't compete with the younger girls who were now dominating the industry. She needed a plan, a new way to keep the money coming in without having to rely solely on herself. Then, like a spark of fire in the dark, an idea struck her, a sinister idea. She would go back to her village and pick out some of the most beautiful young girls whose families were struggling financially. She would convince their parents that she wanted to help them, offer them a better life in the city, give them an education, and ensure they had a bright future. But in reality, her intentions were far from noble. She planned to groom these girls, introduce them to her line of work, and use them to continue making money. She would take a percentage of their earnings while paying them just enough to keep them loyal. The next morning, Miss Chika wasted no time. She packed her bags, dressed in her most elegant outfit, and drove down to her village in her flashy SUV. The moment she arrived, the news of her return spread like wildfire. Elders, relatives, and even young girls admired her presence, whispering about how lucky she was to have made it in life. She wasted no time executing her plan. She visited different homes, looking for families that were struggling, parents who had beautiful daughters but could barely afford a meal. One by one, she picked out 3 girls, each more beautiful than the next. The first girl, Amaka. Amaka was just 18, the pride of her mother and father. Her father was a local farmer who could barely make ends meet, and her mother sold firewood at the market. They had always dreamed of sending Amaka to university, but with no money, that dream seemed impossible. When Miss Chika showed up at their doorstep with promises of a better life, they saw it as a divine blessing. The second girl, Ezina, was 20 years old, the eldest daughter of her widowed mother. Since her father passed, she had been the backbone of the family, helping her mother sell foodstuffs in the market. She was ambitious and had always wanted to become a nurse, but poverty had crushed that dream. When Miss Chika offered her a way out, her mother didn't hesitate to let her go. The third girl, Oluchi, the youngest of the three at 17, was the most naive. She was from a family of 6, with her father working as a bricklayer and her mother as a petty trader. She had always dreamed of leaving the village, seeing the city, and experiencing life beyond the dusty roads of her hometown. Miss Chika's offer seemed like a golden opportunity.
The 3 girls and their families believed they had found an angel. The parents cried tears of joy, thanking Miss Chika for her kindness, unaware that they had just handed their daughters over to a woman who was about to shatter their innocence. As they drove back to the city, the girls were filled with excitement, imagining the bright future ahead. But as soon as they arrived at Miss Chika's mansion, things began to feel off. The first night was bearable, but by the second day, reality began to set in. They noticed the kind of women that frequently visited the house, women dressed in provocative outfits, heavily made up, and always speaking about men and money. The girls didn't understand at first, but by the end of the first week, the truth became clear. Miss Chika sat them down one evening, her expression serious. "My darlings," she began, her voice sweet but firm. "Life in the city is not easy. Nothing comes for free. You have to work hard for what you want." The girls nodded eagerly, expecting her to talk about jobs or education, but what she said next sent shivers down their spines. "I brought you here to make you successful, just like me," she continued. "The world is filled with rich men who are willing to spend on beautiful girls like you. You don't need a certificate to make money. You just need to know how to play the game." The room fell silent. Amaka's heart pounded in her chest. Ezine's hands trembled. Oluchi's eyes widened in shock. "What? What do you mean?" Amaka stuttered. Miss Chika smiled. "You'll understand soon enough." That night they cried themselves to sleep, realizing they had been deceived. But they had no choice. They were in a strange city, far from home, with no money and no way to escape. And so, the nightmare began. Night after night, Miss Chika's business flourished. Wealthy businessmen, politicians, and even influential men in society reached out to her, requesting the company of her girls. Some wanted just one girl, while others demanded 2 or more for their private escapades. Each time her phone rang, she knew it was another deal, another transaction that would bring money into her pockets. Amaka, Ezine, and Oluchi had no choice but to obey. They had tried to resist, but Miss Chika had made it clear that there was no going back. "You think you can just walk away?" she had sneered one night, her eyes filled with cold amusement. "You are in the city now. Where will you go? How will you survive? You have no money, no connections, and no family here. If you try to escape, I will make sure you regret it." With no options, the girls submitted to their fate. Night after night, they went out with clients, sometimes in high-end hotels, other times in private mansions. They returned in the morning, exhausted and broken, but they always handed over the money to Miss Chika. However, no matter how much they made, she only gave them a small portion, just enough to keep them from starving. The rest she kept for herself. At first, the girls had cried. Amaka had even tried to beg for more money, but Miss Chika had only laughed. "You should be grateful," she had said, counting her crisp Naira notes. "Do you know how many girls wish they had this opportunity? This city is tough. If you don't like it, then go and sleep on the streets." Realizing they had no other way out, the girls swallowed their pain and continued working. But deep down, they hated Miss Chika. They despised how she used them, how she enjoyed the luxury of their sweat while they barely had anything. As the days passed, Miss Chika began to notice something troubling. The money the girls were bringing in was no longer enough. The big men who once spent extravagantly were now bargaining. Some even refused to pay as much as they used to. The income was dropping, and it was affecting Miss Chika's lavish lifestyle. She became restless. For the first time in years, she felt the sting of financial struggle. Her monthly shopping trips were reducing, the luxury vacations were getting fewer, and her savings were running dry. The thought of going back to a life without wealth terrified her. One evening, after a particularly disappointing day where the girls returned with far less money than expected, Miss Chika sat in her dimly lit bedroom, deep in thought. Her long nails tapped rhythmically against her dressing table as frustration clouded her mind. "I can't continue like this," she muttered to herself. "I need a solution." Then, an idea struck her. She remembered her old friend Rosaline, who had been in the same business for years. Rosaline was still doing well, still making money, and still controlling a fleet of girls. Without wasting time, Miss Chika picked up her phone and called Rosaline. "My dear, I'm coming over," she said without waiting for a response. 30 minutes later, she was sitting across from Rosaline in her grand apartment. The moment she stepped in, she could tell that Rosaline was. The expensive perfume in the air, the lavish furniture, and the golden wristwatch on her friend's wrist all screamed wealth. "So, tell me, what's bothering you?" Rosaline asked as she poured them both a glass of red wine. Miss Chika sighed, taking a sip before speaking. "The money is no longer flowing like before. The girls are not making enough, and I don't understand why. The men are becoming stingy." Rosaline chuckled. "Ah, my dear, you're facing the same problem I faced years ago." Miss Chika leaned forward eagerly. "Then how did you fix it?" Rosaline's smile widened. "I found a special solution?" Miss Chika frowned. "What kind of solution?" Rosaline glanced around as if ensuring no one was listening, then lowered her voice. "There's a native doctor," she whispered. "An old man, deep in the outskirts of town. He has a way of making men lose control of their money when they are with your girls." Miss Chika's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Rosaline nodded. "It works like magic. The moment a girl touches a client, he willingly gives her everything. His pocket money, his bank balance, everything. You just need to meet the native doctor and follow his instructions carefully." Miss Chika hesitated for a moment. She had never believed much in charms or voodoo, but she was desperate. "Can you take me to him?" she asked. Rosaline smirked. "Tomorrow morning, but be prepared. There will be a condition." The next morning, Rosaline led Miss Chika through dusty roads, deep into an old village far from the city. After a long journey, they arrived at a small, eerie-looking hut. The air around the place was heavy, and the trees swayed ominously as if whispering secrets. An old man sat outside, dressed in a red wrapper, his eyes sharp despite his wrinkled face. The moment they arrived, he stared at Miss Chika as if he had been expecting her. "You seek wealth," he said in a deep voice. Miss Chika nodded quickly. "Yes, Baba. My business is failing. I need help." The old man chuckled. "I will give you a solution, but there is a condition." Miss Chika swallowed. "What condition?" The old man's expression turned serious. "None of your girls must ever fall in love with a client." Miss Chika blinked in confusion. "That's all?" The old man nodded. "If even one of them falls in love, the charm will be broken, and the consequences will be severe." Miss Chika didn't hesitate. "I agree." The old man reached into a wooden box and pulled out 4 small black beads. "These are enchanted wrist beads. Give them to your girls and instruct them to wear them at all times when meeting a client. The moment they touch a client with the beads, he will give them everything he has. His cash, his bank account balance, everything." Miss Chika's heart pounded with excitement. "Thank you, Baba." She rushed home and gathered the girls. "I have something that will change your lives forever," she announced, holding up the beads. "From now on, when you go out, wear these. The moment you touch your client with them, he will hand over everything he has." The girls stared at her, confused and hesitant. "But what if we don't want to wear them?" Amaka asked cautiously. Miss Chika's eyes flashed with anger. "You will wear them," she snapped. "I didn't bring you here to make choices. Do as I say." The girls, having no other option, obeyed. That night, they went out as usual. But when they returned in the morning, their bags were filled with money, more than they had ever brought in before. Miss Chika's eyes shone with greed as she counted the endless stacks of cash. "Finally," she whispered, unable to contain her joy. "This is how it should be." But unknown to her, the condition the native doctor had given would soon come back to haunt her.